Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back with another video and today's topic is, how long is a long time? Today I posted a video explaining audience relevance, and in that video I discussed, among other things, that the letters to the Thessalonians, along with the other epistles, were not written to us today in the 21st century. And needless to say, there were some futurists in the comments, mainly dispensationalists, who disagreed with me. And one of the commenters brought up a parable that is very often tried to use against full preterism or even partial preterism. And it actually proves quite the opposite. So I'm going to share that with you today. So this is from Sarah Casserole, and she was actually replying to Persian Drum, who you probably recognize because I share his comments an awful lot. But anyway, she said, read the parables. He goes away for a long time. I'll look up script, I think she means scripture, and get back here. Jesus destroys the wicked with the brightness of his coming, joining those that are in heaven with those on earth, Ephesians 1:10. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about the parable that she mentioned, and she didn't specify which parable it was, and that's okay because I had to look up specifically which parable mentioned a long time, but it was actually the parable of the talents. So that is our focus for today. And I also want to mention that the reason that she brought this parable up was because we were talking about audience relevance and, Jesus saying that these things were going to happen in his generation. And so that just brought on a whole conversation about when these prophecies would come to pass, whether they're in the future, whether they're in the past. And so Sarah, she thinks that it is in the future. And she, again, brought up the parable of the talents to show that the master left for a long time. So that was her way of saying, look, that's why, it wasn't near and at hand. It was a long time until the master came back in the parable. And so that is what Jesus was referring to, was that it was going to be a long time. Now, I just want to point out that Jesus said this generation. And he said, some of you standing here shall not taste death before you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And he told his disciples that they would not get through all of Israel before he would come back. But it was actually the apostles who used language such as near, at hand, at the door, the last hour, because as time went on, as this generation that Jesus spoke of went on, and as they got nearer and nearer to that time that ended with the destruction of Jerusalem, the language that the apostles used in these epistles, they got more urgent. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. But her point is that the fact the master goes away for a long time supports futurism and that we are still waiting. So let's go to the parable of the talent. And interestingly, the parable of the talent, Jesus told this story, this parable, during the Olivet Discourse. So he said this during the same time frame that he said this generation shall not pass away. Okay, so the parable of the talents. We'll just read the whole thing and then we'll talk about one specific section. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. Then he who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, that's where the long time comes in, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents here. I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here, I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him, and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will be more given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So, as most of you know, this parable is about Jesus's second coming, about this judgment that would happen upon his second coming. And so here in this section, as I showed you, and that this is going to be the first thing that we're going to talk about, it says, Now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So the master left, he was gone a long time, and then he came back. So I have had this parable told to me in many, many, many different comments, not just here, but even like in other places too. And they will use this and say, see, he was gone a long time. Well, all right, let's talk about this. He was gone a long time. Let's go to Joshua 24:7. And when they cried to the Lord, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians, and made the sea come upon them and cover them. And your eyes saw what I did in Egypt, and you lived in the wilderness a long time. A long time. Just like in Matthew 25, in the parable of the talents. Well, my question to you is, how long did the Israelites live in the wilderness? It says a long time. How long was that time? It was 40 years. And how long was it from when Jesus said this until the destruction of the temple, until the time that we preterists are saying was his coming, was the judgment? It was 40 years. A long time, at least according to the Old Testament, would be considered a long time. Now, I'm not saying every time, but that is an example that 40 years is a long time. And here, that is exactly the phrase that Jesus used, a long time. And as I mentioned earlier, he had said this right after he said, Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. This generation. All right. Well, how long is a generation? Numbers 32:13. And the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord was gone. So, according to Numbers 32:13, a generation is 40 years. So what we have here, according to Matthew 25, a long time. And then we have Joshua 24:7, a long time, which is defined as 40 years. Then we have a generation. And then here in Numbers 32:13, we have a generation defined as 40 years. So the idea that a long time is referring to thousands and thousands of years, it doesn't quite fit, especially when you see all of this evidence pointing at 40 years. A long time in this case can mean the same thing as a generation. It's 40 years. Now again, I'm not saying that every time in the Bible it says a long time, it means 40 years. But it can. And then we do see this other evidence where 40 years is a generation. Jesus said this generation. Joshua 24:7 said 40 years is a long time. And here we have in Matthew 25, the master was gone a long time. Could Jesus have been referring to that passage in Joshua 24:7 about the long time being 40 years? Because guess what? He came back in 40 years. So the next problem with using this parable to say that this is something that's going to be thousands of years, down the road, and that's what Jesus was referring to. Let's read this part here. So to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. And then it tells what they did with their talents. And then it says that after a long time, the master of those servants came and he settled accounts with them. He settled accounts with who? Did he settle accounts with people thousands of years in the future because the ones that he had originally given the talents to were passed away by that point? Were long gone? No. When the master came back, he settled accounts with the same people that were there before he left. So here we have another correlation. We have a long time, 40 years, which is a generation. And then we notice that the master came back. He settled accounts with the same people that he gave the talents to. It was not people in the future. It was the same people. They were still there when the master returned. If you ask me, this probably is the last parable that should be used to defend futurism. And quite honestly, I just got a book by Scott Brandon. I think it's called Parables Fulfilled. And it is about how all of the parables were fulfilled by AD 70. So who knows? I might address this parable more in the future. We'll see. But that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. And if you like my work and would like to become a channel member, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well, or you can just click on it right on my channel page. And I hope you have a great day.